Welcome everyone, welcome to Silent Stacks. Here we focus on silently stacking the bag while navigating uncertainty in real time. Welcome to my channel. I post 3 videos per month, one on the 8th, one on the 17th, and one on the 26th of each month. If you find value in my work, feel free to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Let's dive right in. All right, so here we have the Bitcoin chart. We are still in this range. I did explain this range in my previous video, so if you want to go check that out. But here we are in the all-time high. We are holding it pretty well. So we're still in the range. This range is about 60K to 80K or 85K. Bitcoin is in the price action between these and we are testing the all-time high. So nothing really changed from last one, but it's good to see that we're getting some reaction in the previous all-time high. Is this the bottom? Nobody knows, but it is a good spot to monitor. I see a lot of people on Twitter, they're calling for about 60K to even lower. But the thing is, when will it happen? Will 60K happen first or will 80K happen first? That's what we're here to find out. In this video, I want to focus on metals. Metals is going to be a good indicator of timing when liquidity will flow into Bitcoin. Okay, so this is the gold chart. And to me, it looks very, very overextended. Okay, so I have these boxes marked using the fib. This is what I used in understanding where we are. And we are very, very overextended. Not only do we bust right through the first one, but now we're testing the top of the second one. So it's very, very overextended. And in my experience, I never really see any charts go beyond the second without some type of correction. And that to me is signaling gold could very well do that. All right, so I am monitoring this second fib. If it starts going through, then yeah, we'll push higher, but that will be crazy. Zooming in gold, we did have a nice reaction over here. So we went above the second box and had a huge reaction. And then when you look at schematic, usually when we have a huge reaction, we go back into the golden pocket. We should start going lower than this. And if we breach this level right here in gold, then the short-term downtrend or the short-term correction will be confirmed. This is a very crucial level. In my opinion, it is very, very overextended, even passing this. We're testing the second target zones and we are in the breaking point. So if we nuke from here and create a lower low, we'll confirm the correction. If we start breaking this and push higher, then yeah, it's going to continue. All right, so that's what we're monitoring. And to me, it makes a lot more sense for it to go down because it's very, very overextended. So once it starts breaking here, we'll be chilling here for a few months, a few weeks, and that will spill over into Bitcoin, into cryptocurrency. And that's what I'm waiting for. Same thing with silver. Silver, it's not as overextended. I did take a silver trade. I entered it around right here. After I saw gold really pushing higher, silver started signaling over here for me, and I decided to take a stab at here. And I'm going to show you an interesting thing about silver and what I did here, okay? All right. Here on January 27, 2026, I posted bought silver at $47 and sold it at 107 because it was in the codes. If you look at the periodic table, I just thought this was interesting. It's the atomic number 47, and then the atomic mass is 107. And what's interesting about 47 in the silver chart is that if you zoom all the way out, back in 1980, it topped around $47 and it went a crazy bear market. And it eventually rallied back up, back into 47, more or less, and then had another crazy bear market. So silver loves the number 47. I thought that was very interesting. And then here, when silver was going ballistic, it made sense to jump into silver, so I bought in around $47. And then just for fun, I was targeting 107 because of the atomic number. And not only that, it did align with some fibs over here. So I decided to de-risk. So I bought here and I sold here. I sold what I invested. So I have a free position now. I bought here, and then whatever I bought here, I sold over here. And then look what happened right after. If metal is going to push higher, I think silver will have a better move than gold because gold to me is way too overextended. So I am monitoring this level and we could start flopping down. So if gold starts flopping down, it's the same thing. Silver will start flopping down. And then once it breaks this, it will confirm the correction move that is going to take longer to continue. And if we start breaking this box, start closing above, then yeah, we'll push higher. In my other video, I did mention the eclipses. This is something that is very important to my analysis because I've been observing it regarding timing. And to me, it makes sense for crypto to continue. I think liquidity will flow back into crypto for several reasons. We will be monitoring metals here to confirm because if gold starts to go down from here, then it will spill over into cryptocurrency, Bitcoin and altcoins. Now we're going to talk about the lunar eclipse. This is a phenomena that I've been observing for a few years now and studying it. We are approaching the lunar eclipse on March 3rd. I have a theory that this could be a potential bottom. This one is a tricky one to navigate because we do have an almost full lunar eclipse on August 2026. So it's a partial, but it looks almost full. But technically, the last total lunar eclipse is going to be March 3rd. So this could be signaling a bottom for me. Let me give you an example. This is a chart with all the history of Bitcoin. I marked the solar eclipse and the lunar eclipse dating all the way back to Bitcoin Genesis. To keep it simple, Bitcoin has the bull market during the solar eclipse and it has the bear market during the lunar eclipse. These blue lines are the halving as well. All the halving so far happened during a solar eclipse. During the solar eclipse is when the liquidity flows back into Bitcoin. This phenomenon mainly only works for Bitcoin, not so much for altcoins. But once Bitcoin makes its move, then you'll be able to identify what alts could do. So that said, it's kind of like alts follows this as well. But this is mainly for Bitcoin. I could go over it briefly over here. This is the third lunar eclipse, and then Bitcoin rallied all the way up until the next lunar cycle. And that's when we enter the bear market. And then over here, we had the third lunar eclipse, the last lunar eclipse. Bitcoin rallied all the way up until the next lunar cycle, and then it had a bear market. The last lunar eclipse, Bitcoin bottomed and then rallied all the way up until the next lunar phase. And now we are entering the third lunar eclipse. So if this is to repeat, then Bitcoin will rally all the way up until next lunar phase, which happens to be around January 2029. That will be the next bear market. So many people are thinking that the bear market is just starting and they are targeting Q4 for Bitcoin bottom around August, around October of 2026 for potential bottom. And I could see that playing out just because of the lunar eclipse partial, which is almost full. So I could entertain that idea. This is a very interesting cycle and we will have to monitor that. But I am open-minded to March being a potential bottom. So what if March 3rd happens, we'll build some kind of structure, and then we rally from the March lunar eclipse to the August 12, 2026 solar eclipse, back into, let's say, 85K. Very possible. Very, very possible. So that's something that I'm monitoring. The thing to know about the lunar eclipse, though, this tends to be a black swan event. I definitely want to be cautious during this moon. So it's about 3 weeks before, 3 weeks after. I'm going to be monitoring, and you want to be cautious of any black swans because this could reveal itself in the charts. For example, in our last lunar eclipse, there was the FTX moment, and this marked the bottom. But look what happened during the day. It was a pretty nasty candle on the day of the lunar eclipse. This is a black swan event, but eventually stabilized for about 2 months before it's starting its bull run. So that's what I want to monitor during this third eclipse. We could have some kind of black swan. So be cautious about 3 weeks to 3 weeks after. And then once we get over this phase, we'll see where price action is. And then we could enter more or less where we are now or enter lower, wherever this is. Okay, so just be cautious during this date. I am on the lookout for any black swans. Anything could happen, okay? So just be cautious. We're going to do the same thing for XRP. I marked all the lunar eclipse for XRP to see what kind of pattern we could find with this chart. During lunar eclipse is bear market, and after we end the lunar phase, liquidity starts to come back in, or it's a good time to accumulate, and then we can start targeting the higher targets. Back into the genesis of XRP, on the last lunar eclipse of August 2015, the accumulation began, and it lasted about 500 days before it popped off, and it peaked in the beginning of the lunar phase. In this case, it was December 2017. And then we entered a bear market, and after the last lunar eclipse in December 2018, we began the accumulation, and it lasted about 400 to 500 days before we started to push into the next lunar phase. And then we entered the bear market. The last lunar eclipse in October 2022, Bitcoin found structure in the bottom. And then from that point on, it lasted about 700 days for accumulation. So this one lasted a very, very long time. And eventually it popped up into the next lunar phase. And here we are, about to end the lunar phase. So the last lunar phase, or the last lunar eclipse in the lunar phase, is going to be March 2026. That's what we're monitoring right here. So we're going to be monitoring March or August for a potential bottom. And it could take some time. But the idea is that since this accumulation took about 400 to 500 days, this one took about 400 to 500 days, and this one took so long, this one took about 700 days, why can't this one be shorter? And this chart tells me exactly that. It does not have to be this long because this one was already long enough. Also, just looking at the structure, this is a powerful schematic playing out. We have a high here, we found the bottom here, we had a second test, we found the structure over here, we broke the neck, and now we're finding some stability over here. And then once we find some stability, we start to push higher. That's the idea. Nothing's broken. This chart's looking very, very clean. Now we're going to zoom in XRP and we're going to see a different view. With this one, I like to pull up the EMA. So I am monitoring the 200 weekly EMA and the 50 weekly EMA. If you look in the history of XRP, it tends to react in the 200. So I'm anticipating something like this. If you look over here, back in 2018, it fell into the 200 EMA and then rallied into the 50 EMA. And it kept trading between this range for a while and eventually led it to a capitulation. And then this will be the bull rally of 2021. And then we entered the bear market. It went into the 200 EMA and then it rallied back into the 50. So it tends to do that. It tends to jump into the 200 EMA and rally back to the 50. So that's what I'm monitoring right now. So this is the first test of the 200 EMA. I'm anticipating us go back into the 50 EMA, and this will be a cautious zone, okay? So if we start getting stuck here, we could reveal previous patterns that it won't end very well. But if we start to rally beyond this, then yeah, we could definitely start to focus on the higher targets. So I am anticipating a short-term bounce, at least from 200 EMA to the 50 EMA. So I'm looking forward to that. That will be about $1.40 XRP to about $2 XRP. And that's about a 47% move.